We are sharing as much information as we can, as possible.
The White House on Tuesday said debris from the most recent unidentified flying object shot down by U.S. fighter jets over the weekend had not yet been recovered, citing tough winter weather conditions, but added that there was no indication they were part of China's spy program.
What we know is the intelligence community is considering as a leading explanation that these could be tied to commercial or research entities and Benign.
Since the U.S. shot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon off the coast of South Carolina, 3 more unmanned flying objects have been shot out of the sky, the first over Alaska, the second over Canada's Yukon Territory, and the third over Lake Huron. Many questions remain unanswered about the 3 more recent flying objects, including where they came from. On Capitol Hill, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said senators were getting regular briefings on the matter.
U.S. and Canadian forces are working to recover the objects that were shot down. In the briefing, the military and intelligence people outlined their approach to each of the 4 objects. What I can say after our briefing is that our defense and intelligence agencies are focused like a laser on gathering every piece of information about these objects to figure out exactly what's happening.
The U.S. military and the White House acknowledged that much about the most recent unmanned objects remains unknown, including how they stay aloft, who built them, and whether they may have been collecting intelligence. Republican Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska, where an unidentified object was brought down on Friday, said the White House needed to be more forthcoming with information about the incidents.
When you don't provide information and there's a dearth of information, it can lead to wild speculation. It can lead to unfounded fears.
Meanwhile, the U.S. military, which has been analyzing debris from the Chinese balloon that was shot down on February 4th, says it recovered critical electronics, including key sensors, presumably used for intelligence gathering. China denies it was a spy vessel and on Tuesday reiterated an accusation that the U.S. was flying its own high-altitude balloons into China's airspace, aggravating already rocky relations between the 2 world powers. The White House has disputed China's claim, calling it false.
Hey, everybody. There's only one each. There's one for everyone in the room. So share. As your mom told you, sharing is caring. So share. And look, the president is taking this very seriously, and he's receiving briefings regularly from his national security advisors, and he's going to continue to do that. We are sharing as much information as we can, as possible, but we do want to make sure that the American people understand that there's no need to panic. The president took this action, as I mentioned earlier, because the objects were indeed flying at lower elevation, and they were in civilian airspace, and we wanted to make sure that we protected that airspace. But again, we want to also make sure that the Americans are not do not panic during this time.
Have any private companies or research institutes contacted the U.S. government in any form to say that one of their flying objects is missing?
No, we have not yet been contacted.
Has the U.S. done anything to reach out to companies that could operate similar sized flying objects either here in the U.S. or elsewhere?
I don't have anything to preview or report.
I wanted to know when the president is going to come forward and speak to the American people. I mean, the U.S. does not shoot objects out of the sky every day. Why hasn't the president come forward and spoken to the American people about this?
So I know your colleague asked my colleague this earlier today during his gaggle. And look, the president is taking this very seriously, and he's receiving briefings regularly from his national security advisors, and he's going to continue to do that. We are sharing as much information as we can, as possible, but we do want to make sure that the American people understand that there's no need to panic. The president took this action, as I mentioned earlier, because the objects were indeed flying at lower elevation, and they were in civilian airspace, and we wanted to make sure that we protected that airspace. But again, we want to also make sure that the Americans are not do not panic during this time.
If it turns out, as it looks like, that the president and Mr. Trudeau sent Top Gun fighters to blow weather balloons out of the sky. Does the president regret that, and is he embarrassed by that?
I'm not going to get ahead of what of any final decision. We just don't know yet. We actually just don't know. And as I've said, as my colleague has said from NSC, it is in consideration that could be the leading explanation here. Again,
Is the
but
president embarrassed by that?
no,
The
I
idea
get-
that
I
you would
get-
take
I don't
hundreds
know.
of thousands
Okay,
of dollars
let me-
of equipment
Michael,
and
let me answer the question. I don't think the president should be embarrassed, right, by the fact that he took action to make sure that our airspace, civilian airspace, was safe. I don't think that he should.
I'm sorry.
No, but
Apologies.
I'm answering the question. I am answering the question, right? The president took action because we did see that these objects were in the airspace of civilian airspace, and so to protect the civilian airspace, the president took action. He took recommendation by the Pentagon to take that action. I don't want to get ahead of what will be the final analysis, right, of what the objects may have been or may not have been. So don't want to get into a hypothetical here. But look, this is the president does everything that he can, everything in his power, right, to defend, to track, and to protect our airspace. And that's what you should glean from what the actions that this president took.